Patrick. What are we going to talk about today? Alright, so, hi people. Patrick is my little aloe here. I'll show him to you at some time. He's got googly eyes that makes me smile. Hi, my name's Lauren. I am the current DM for The Keep, and I've been DMing for just a little bit over a year. It has been a huge learning curve going through this process and DMing, and I thought I'd share some of what I learned with you. So it falls into sort of two categories, right? Things I've learned at the table or before the game or about the game, and then things I've learned really about myself and personal things to sort of I've processed through as I've gone on this journey. So I hope that you come along for the ride and that some of this is interesting or noteworthy for you and you get to enjoy. So first up, table lessons, right? When I first started DMing, I didn't really know what I was doing. I'd seen a couple YouTube videos and I'd played in different campaigns with my friends. And one of the things I'd heard about but didn't really know what was going on was a session 0. And there's a lot of issues that can crop up when you play with a group of people. And a session 0 can be really helpful for preventing some of those issues or dealing with them when they arise, right? So the first thing that you really want to bring up is the type of game that you want to play. Now, when I started sort of a session 0 with my players, it was basically this guy saying, I'm going to play a Goblin Barbarian, and this guy saying, I'm going to play an Elven Ranger, and figuring out how they would sort of fit together into the world. And that's a great place to start. But when you're talking about the type of game you want to play, think about, are you wanting to play more good versus evil, classic heroic sort of game, or something a little more nuanced, or grittier, more grimdark? That can really inform the tone of the game that you as DM get to set, and the sort of preparations you get to make, and the missions or quests that you get to place in front of your players. One of the other things that you want to talk about is the sort of expectations for the game. Are you going to play a more combat-heavy game, or a more RP or exploration-based game? Combat is my weakness, and my poor tactical players. Some of them love combat. Like, there are a couple of really solidly tactical, efficient, very optimal scenario players in my group, and combat is their forte, and it is my greatest weakness. So that's something that I have to stretch myself with as a DM, and if I had known going into it that I really favored the roleplay more than the combat, that would have been really good to communicate up front, just to sort of set that expectation. Speaking of setting expectations, let's talk about etiquette at the table. Do you want to allow side talk during game? Or eating at the table? Do you have alcohol that you partake of during the game or before or after? What's your stance on cell phones? Are they on the table? Are they on the table but only for a specific purpose? When other people are talking, what's happening? These are good questions to ask just to sort of simplify things and ease the way into the game a little bit. One of the other things that you want to talk about are the boundaries that your players have. What are the things that they don't feel comfortable with? For instance, if your group of players doesn't really want to explore violence against children, maybe don't have a plot hook based on a necromancer killing kids and enslaving their souls to power his arcane death machines. Maybe not do that. Talk about perhaps the attitudes towards religion or politics in the game. And especially if anything is going to run up against current issues, those can be really touchy subjects. So maybe talk about them and figure out where your players stand before you run into a landmine and everything kind of blows up. Moving on a little bit, when you're creating your world, it's really easy for DMs to feel possessive, I guess, about their creation, and especially when it's a homebrew world, if I can talk, and especially for new DMs, because you spend so much time and energy creating this setting, right? Don't forget, your players are sort of your collaborators, they're your co-authors. Their actions are going to have an impact on the world, and it can be a little crazy, but listen to the types of stories that they want to tell. This can inform a lot of your planning and preparation. And when you sit down and you listen to your players, and you remember to collaborate with them and accept their input on the world, you get to avoid this sort of DM versus players mentality, and you get to instead create something together. You invest in it, and you are really involved in this process. And especially if your players are involved in it with you, they're going to be a lot more integrated into the world. Their players are going to feel a lot more part of it if they can know some of the history of their region and their some of the major factions or influences, and especially with the stories that they want to tell, it can be daunting. But listening to your players and getting their feedback, and especially when you have really smart players and they figure out things that you had meant to be a surprise or a twist ending, it's gonna happen. Just let them have the aha moment, let them have that big reveal and, oh, you knew it all along. Your players will get so much satisfaction out of that. Sort of my last note here, speaking of preparing the world and the setting, don't necessarily over-prepare. You want to have things loose and flexible. If you have everything set so that there's one solution to the puzzle, or one correct answer to the riddle, or one way in and one way out, if your players miss that, it can lead to getting stuck and spending a lot of time being frustrated until they figure out the one right way. Having that little bit of flexibility is really helpful for you as DM to help guide and tweak so that they don't pass by that major NPC with the information that they need to know just because they didn't go to the inn that you thought they needed to. Be able to pick up that NPC and move them and have them be encountered somewhere else. Even take it a step further. Having a whole world entirely fleshed out is a lot to remember on top of everything else that you've got in your head as DM. If you have a skeleton for most of the world and then flesh out the area where the players are at, it'll be a lot easier to sort of build and develop the world organically and naturally as your players explore it and leave their own thumbprints on it. Now, on a little bit more personal note, speaking of having a lot of things on your mind as DM, you're not gonna get everything right all the time. There are a lot of rules and a lot of little changes to scenarios that can pop up, and inevitably, you're gonna make mistakes. I make mistakes. And because I'm a perfectionist and I want everything to go well, I have trouble accepting that. I have trouble having grace on myself. And it can be really exhausting trying to have everything perfect all of the time. But, and this is probably the biggest lesson I've learned through this whole process, have grace for yourself. Be okay with making mistakes. Learn from it. Apologize if you need to. Fix it if you need to. But learn from it and then move on. I talked a little bit earlier about sort of letting your players leave their thumbprints on the world. Embrace that and the unexpected and the chaos, because those are going to be some of the most memorable moments. What you think might be a perfect episode or a perfect session could go completely off the rails. Go with it. Say yes and go with it, because I guarantee those are going to be some of the most memorable moments. It's going to be some of the most fun times, and it certainly has been for me. And remember, above everything else, this is a game. Have fun with your friends. If you're not having fun, something needs to change. So go back if you're in that place where you're starting to get tired and burnt out, and remember why you're doing this in the first place. Why are you DMing? Why do you create this world or these encounters and set them in front of your players? Because they're your friends. And this game is a lot of fun. And if it's not, well, change it. Address it. Fix it. Have fun with your friends. Now, I hope that this has provided some sort of information. That's maybe the word I'm looking for. I hope you've gotten something out of this video. I certainly had a lot of fun sort of processing through and making it. It's been really good. So if you want to join us at the Keep and see our adventures, you can catch us at twitch.tv/thekeeprpg. Check us out on Instagram and Twitter. Our handles on both of those are thekeeprpg, and we look forward to seeing you in the future. Bye, guys.